First of all, let me thank all of you for coming today. I guess we had another one of those tragedies in the Capital Region out in Schoharie where there was a shooting. But we appreciate those who have taken the time to be here. And I want to thank my colleagues who are here with me today in support of this particular proposal, especially my colleague from the other side of the building, Assemblyman Lawler, who worked very diligently to help me and him work together to put this proposal, which I think is historic in its nature and really should be acted upon. And it deals in two areas with probably the most egregious and discriminatory source of revenue we ask for through taxation in the state of New York. It relates to our property tax and our municipal tax and the services related to them, and the fact that what we're doing is looking at the value and the assessment of an individual, a constituent's house, to suggest the wealth they have and the ability they have to pay their fair share of the taxes for one of the most important services we provide for our children, and that's their education and the municipal services for villages, towns, and cities and counties. Why is it discriminatory? Well, this is called two-star. But I could just as well call this proposal Beatrice's Law, because Beatrice Tedisco, my mom, exemplifies why we need to either move completely, and if I could, and I'm pretty sure some of my colleagues, if we could turn to another area to get the revenues to support education for our kids and municipal services, I'm sure we would. But I know that's not going to happen this year or probably in the next couple of years. So I think the best deal we can get right now is enhance in several ways the particular STAR program we put in place to help the beleaguered property taxpayer, and look at two things in relationship to that. How can you possibly say the value of a house in and of itself that individuals have paid for 30, 40, or 50 years, told at work, now maybe on a fixed pension or a fixed income system, have to pay the taxes and are wondering, I got my mortgage paid, I paid for it over 30, 40 years, but now the taxes are so high, I don't know if I can sustain this. When I said Beatrice Tedisco exemplifies a lot of the younger people just getting in their future, middle income and middle class and seniors, I'll tell you the story. My dad worked in the foundry for 30 years in the General Electric. Very difficult place to work. Asbestos all over the place, red hot steel over your head. Succumbed to stomach cancer at the age of 67. My mother was about the same age. She lived for 30 more years to the age of 97. Do you know what she lived on for 30 years? $14,000 of Social Security to pay her property taxes, to pay her groceries, to pay the sales tax and gasoline tax and her health care. She's a microcosm of what we see with a lot of families and a lot of individuals across this state. Of course, she couldn't do it, but my brother, myself, and our family helped her sustain that, maintain it, and stay in her home. But here's the kicker on this thing. She had a house next to another house which was similar in nature, assessed at about the same size. The individuals in those both houses and the family paid the same level of taxes for their houses. That gentleman who lived there was a GE executive who made close to $150,000. Now compare that. $150,000, same house. $14,000, same size house. Who was going to be able to sustain that house and live an appropriate life with all the other bills that had to be paid? It's egregious, it's discriminatory. Now, something has happened recently which suggests this is the time to make a change in several areas, because the other part of this thing is, and my colleagues here today, I probably get the same discussion. I'm out ringing doorbells because myself and my friend here, where is he? He's in the back. You're my friend too. Have a little something going on. But when we go to the houses, I go to a house, someone's 85, wow, 80, 89. Hey, Senator, I had no children in school. Didn't happen to have any children. But I've been paying these property taxes for education for 40 or 50 years. I don't mind doing it. Education's important. And those who have had kids in school say to me, they've been gone for 30 or 40 years. But does it have to be an eternity that you pay taxes in New York State? And two-star relates to the fact that we can tell them, it doesn't have to be an eternity. Because in this particular year, when we started out the year before the pandemic with an unbelievable deficit already, and make no mistake, the pandemic did heighten that deficit. The federal government bailed us out. They not only took care of the deficit we have, they took care of the fact that we had to close down our economy. People had to leave their work. They had that go on unemployment. We were not getting sales tax for these past 2 years in many instances. We were not getting heightened income tax in many instances because people weren't working. We were paying out unemployment. But they covered that with the money that they brought to us here. But beyond that, we've got an unbelievable surplus. Check the comptroller's website. One area, $13.5 billion is to go to homeowners from the federal government. It's on the comptroller's website. This is what two-star relates to. We have the ability to now to do two things with the enhanced STAR program. Here's the first thing this does. It doubles the basic STAR tax credit program for your property tax for schools. And that's important. It also doubles the enhanced STAR exemption and credit for seniors who get that enhanced credit because they're at a certain low level but at a certain age. So we're doubling that for both of them. That's going to help them keep their property, maintain their property. But here's the second thing about eternity, what I mentioned. We can tell them now 319,000 people left the state of New York last year. Empire Center just did a poll. You know what they said the #1 reason was? Of course, taxes. This will incentivize young people, middle-aged people to say, maybe there is a future in New York. It's not the only thing we have to do. But what this says is taxes will no longer be eternity for those who fit into the enhanced program at the income level. They won't get a credit anymore. When you're 80 years of age under this proposal, or above, 83, 84, 85, or you reach 80 years of age, no more taxes in New York State. You'll never have to pay taxes in the state of New York if you fit in with the income level of the enhanced STAR property tax rebate credit. That won't exist for them anymore. You won't get a tax bill anymore. It won't be eternal anymore. So now, here's an area where we can incentivize people to stay here and say, maybe there is a future in New York State. I get to be 80 years of old. You got to all be excited right now. Think of the future you're going to have. You know, I was dreading my 80th birthday. I can't wait to get there in 40 more years. No, not really. But we think it makes imminent sense. There's $13.5 billion, read the comptroller's report, for homeowners in New York State. And this is a way we can keep them in our homes. And make no mistake about it, we have young homeowners who bought homes just before the pandemic and are struggling right now because along with the pandemic, along with their income being at a middle level, you know we have the highest inflation in 40 years. Gas prices, we've talked about that. Heating prices, grocery prices, healthcare prices. They're having to make some real decisions now about, can I keep my house? Can I keep my home? Can I pay the mortgage? Can I pay those school property taxes? This would relate directly to the largest tax we have for homeowners, the school property tax that they have. We'll enhance that for the basic program. And for the seniors, you get to be 80, you're on Easy Street now. You don't have to pay any more taxes. So now I'd like to introduce my colleague on the other side who helped craft this, Assemblyman Lawler, and we appreciate you being here and all your help.
Thank you, Senator. And, you know, as someone who lives in Rockland County, where we pay the second highest property taxes in America, and someone who ran on the issue of affordability and making Rockland County and New York State more affordable, this is the type of proposal that we need to be putting forth and need to be passing in the New York State legislature. I'm proud to stand here with Senator Tedisco and my colleagues in the Senate to announce this legislation at a time when New Yorkers continue to pay through the nose on taxes, with inflation at record levels, the highest in over 40 years, gas prices continuing to go up at the pump, and a majority that believes we're not spending enough. They believe we should be spending $226 billion to $229 billion dollars in this budget. And that's after the governor already gave away the farm in her executive budget. So this is a time for us as a state to recognize the need to support property owners in the state of New York. You know, over the last 2 years, we've seen every program under the sun to support those who rent, to those who are in need of assistance, but very little to support property taxpayers. And so this legislation is critically important. It is something that will help so many of our seniors stay in their homes, so many New Yorkers avoid having to flee to other states where it's less cost prohibitive to live, where there are more economic opportunities. This is an opportunity for us to say that we want New Yorkers to stay, that we want them to stay in their homes, that we want to make our state more affordable. And so I think, you know, when we look at the federal dollars that have been poured into New York, this is one of the best ways that we can use that money to help keep people in their homes and help make it more affordable for them to live, to work, to raise their family, and ultimately retire. And that should be the objective of all of us in the state legislature, and that's why I'm proud to support this legislation and carry it in the state assembly. So thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Good job. Yeah, and when I say we're number one in taxes, you know, I've often talked about Tax Freedom Day. We're number one in Tax Freedom Day. And that is the day that everybody takes home $1 in New York State, and it's up until May. So we've got to send a message, as the Assemblyman said, that we're going to be open for business to try to keep people in New York State, own their home. And for a long time, they've been able to purchase it, toil, pay for it, and then finally own it. And when they get that tax bill, they say, I don't know if I can sustain it. I got a lot of colleagues here who have some similar situations. If anyone wants to say anything, I'd be happy to let them say anything about their experiences there. But I think the experience of my mom really hit home with me. When I found out she was had to live on 30 years on Social Security for $14,000, and the G executive was making $150,000 to $200,000, I said, this can't be fair. Anybody interested in it? Say, after you want to see? Okay.
You summed it up beautifully, Senator.
Yeah, I think you said it all.
Perfect. Anybody got any questions?
How much would something like this cost the state budget altogether, Senator?
Well, that's what we've been looking at. Now, the first part of it, for the basic and for the enhanced, not the ones who turn 80, that's about $2.1 billion, okay? And remember, I don't know if you were here when I said the comptroller has stated that there are $13.5 billion that's been sent from the federal government strictly for homeowners, 13.5. We're working now on the senior because there's 650,000 who are in the enhanced program, but they're 65, 66, 67. We're trying to find out how many are 80 years of old or older. We haven't gotten that figure yet, but we're working on that. That would give us a complete estimate. But I know it's not going to reach $13.5 billion. So I think it's more in the realm of what we can afford. And if we're ever going to do this, because look, as Assemblyman Lawler said, we're spending like drunk soldiers, and that's an embarrassment to drunken sailors and soldiers right now. And I'm afraid we're going to get right back into the situation we were before, where we're in a deficit situation. And we don't want to ask for another pandemic to have us bailed out by the federal government. The one good thing, it was a disaster. People lost their lives. We had a governor who had to leave the state. The only good thing is they realized we needed some revenue from the federal area. And they gave us, as I said, money from the federal government to take care of our deficit, to bring us through the shutdown of our economy, and to have billions of dollars in surplus. So now is the time to give back to those property owners who want to stay and live in their house. And I think this is across the board because it is egregious, it is discriminatory, and at some point I think we've got to find another outlet to get the revenue to support an important policy like our kids' education and the policy of providing services for local municipalities. So I can't give you a full answer, but
Let me just add one comment when we're talking about the costs of some of these programs. You know, putting aside for a second the amount of money that the federal government has sent to New York, this state legislature and this government has enacted legislation that would create, for instance, a $100 million taxpayer-funded campaign finance system. I've introduced legislation to get rid of that. I'm happy to take that $100 million and put it towards property tax relief. We look at the $2.3 billion that was spent last year in last year's budget for undocumented immigrants with the excluded worker fund. So when we start hearing from some of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, who I'm sure will opine about the cost here, we can easily find cost savings in addition to what the federal government has sent us to support homeowners very quickly to pay for this program to help the taxpayers who pay for everything, including the politicians' salaries.
I can give you a figure for the average basic STAR program. The average is $719 right now. This would boost it up to $1,580 per homeowner. For the senior enhanced, it's $1,382 credit. This would boost it up to $2,764. And we have people who are on pensions right now, not getting a cost of living, or on fixed income, like my mom was just on Social Security. And they're not sure they can keep their house. They've paid off their mortgage. They've told to do it over 30 or 40 years. A lot of work to get that done. And then they get that tax bill. And they like the STAR program, but it's getting kind of old in the teeth now, long in the tooth. And we got to add to it, I believe, to keep them in their homes. Because my mom didn't want to leave her house. I'll tell you that right now. You know why? She didn't like the spaghetti costs in any of those homes, she said. I'm not going to eat that food over there. So that was her big thing. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for being here.